everyone, and welcome to the Technical Sales Key New Features webinar for Backup Exec 2012. My name is Jason Conine, and I am one of the dedicated system engineers at Tech Data. Today, I will be going over common IT challenges, features and capabilities of Backup Exec 2012, a technical overview of these new features, technical strengths in Backup Exec 2012, and a summary along with where to go for additional resources and information. So let's start off with some of the key IT challenges facing businesses today. So last year, Symantec conducted a survey on thousands of end users and found that nearly around 2/3 of all their virtual machines are not being backed up. So the first question we ask ourselves is, why is this happening, right? Well, the first reason is because of virtual machine sprawl. This happens because it's very easy to create a lot of virtual machines in a short amount of time. And second is the cost to back up these virtual machines. But regardless of these factors, all businesses need to make sure that they are backing up their virtual machines, because it's really just as important to back up a virtual machine as it is to back up a physical server. And companies need to make sure they're implementing the right virtual machine backup plan to really make sure they're getting the most out of their infrastructure and avoiding creating any unnecessary costs. Aside from the challenge and opportunity that virtualization represents, there is data growth and storage challenges that businesses face as well. So as you all know, some of our customers have large amounts of growing data, and with that comes rising storage costs. However, in many cases, up to 70% of this data in their environment is duplicate, or it's redundant data. Now, with the release of Backup Exec 2012, there's an opportunity to further improve your customer's backup and recovery environment through their deduplication and archiving technologies within the product. And these features really help our customers reduce their storage cost and shrink their backup windows. So another key challenge is the problem of disaster recovery, and obviously without a good recovery tool in place, we are forced to recover servers the old-fashioned way, which can be very time-consuming and a very tedious process. So this might mean reinstalling the operating system from scratch and sitting through hours of updating, patching, and rebooting the operating system. Then, once you have an operational server, you can start installing all your applications back on the new server and start restoring, the information. And then, hopefully if that was all successful, there were no errors, during this restore, because, if you do run into an error during this restore process, you might have to start all over again. And, even to take that one step farther, many customers today have multiple sites, and this makes the disaster recovery problem even more difficult for us to manage. So nowadays, you really require multiple backup solutions for different backup tasks, such as data protection, application protection, and disaster recovery. And, what if it's a physical or what if it's a virtual machine? You might require additional software depending on what you're currently using. So obviously the management and trying to figure out a decent backup schedule with all these different backup products is making it more difficult for us to really figure out the best backup solution for a customer. Now, I'm not going to be reviewing the licensing during this webinar. However, I'd like to mention that obviously the licensing of all these products can also be very complex. Think about how often you have to mix and match agents and options to a customer-specific configuration. So, wouldn't it be nice if we could eliminate, all this complexity of backups, all the complexity of this disaster recovery, and the complexity of, licensing? Luckily for us, these were the key goals in Backup Exec 2012. So let's take a look at some of these new features and functionality in Backup Exec 2012. First, let's talk about how Backup Exec 2012 helps solve that problem I mentioned with virtualization, and that backing up virtual machines is just as important as protecting physical machines. So customers commonly make the mistake of buying those multiple backup software solutions. They buy one backup tool for physical servers, another backup tool for virtual servers, and then maybe another tool for system recovery. Now, luckily for us, Backup Exec 2012's makes this completely unnecessary. So we are now able to sell one software solution to a customer because it can fully protect both physical and virtual servers with a single product. Now, I know that I mentioned I wouldn't be talking about licensing. However, an important point is that when we license Backup Exec 2012 for virtual machines, it's very easy to do. Now, you'll just get one generalized virtual agent that can be used to protect all virtual machines for a specific hypervisor host. And really, it's important to know that Backup Exec is really the leader when it comes to the recovery of virtual machines, because from a single pass backup of a virtual machine, the IT admin has all the recovery methods at their disposal. This means things like a full virtual machine recovery, granular application recovery, and even redirected recovery so that you can restore a virtual machine into a completely different hypervisor host. So let's dig a little deeper into how Symantec has optimized Backup Exec 2012 to protect these virtual environments. Now, whether you're backing up VMware or even Hyper-V virtual machines, it's performing image-level backups. Plus, these backups now proceed directly to the backup server. So there's no need for that middleman proxy server to act as a go-between. Backups are now officially going directly from the hypervisor right to the backup server for storage. Next, the deduplication technology has been optimized for both VMware and Hyper-V, which allows the new version 2012 to understand what those virtual disk files contain and is able to deduplicate them more effectively. Next, it also now supports block optimization. What does that really mean? Basically, when backing up VMware or Hyper-V virtual machines, there's all this empty space, right? Now, with Backup Exec 2012, all this empty, wasted space within the virtual disk file is now ignored and not backed up. So with that said, this essentially enables the software to support differential and incremental backups for both Hyper-V and VMware backups. So again, it's really all about the benefits. All this stuff makes your backups faster and require less storage space and has a lighter impact on your production virtual machines. So let's talk about Hyper-V support. So for starters, it now has a stream handler that allows Backup Exec to deduplicate Hyper-V virtual disk files or your VHD files. It also now supports changed block tracking, which means it can now track what changes occurred to a virtual machine at the block level between backups. And this gives us support for those differential and incremental backups. So we no longer have to back up the full virtual machine each time. Now we simply run a full backup once and then run the differential backups or incremental backups from then on, only capturing the block level changes. Okay, so let's talk about a completely new feature, which is the ability to convert backups to virtual format, or P2V, and backup to virtual format, also known as V2V. Now, the physical to virtual conversion process, which is the top half of the slide here, uses parallel data streams to store backup data to the Backup Exec server, as well as to a hypervisor. So, in other words, at the same time it captures a backup of a physical machine, it also stores this backup to the backup server. And at the same time, in parallel, convert that to a virtual machine and store it directly to your hypervisor. Now, as for the backup to virtual or the B2V process, this is very similar. But instead of being a parallel data stream, it's a separate or serial data stream, which means the process for storing the backups happens first at the backup server, and then once it's completed, the backup to virtual process is then kicked off. So now, for either process, P2V or B2V, a form of dissimilar hardware restore is also used to ensure that the original physical server will function new virtual form. So, if you have a physical server and a hypervisor in your environment, I'd highly recommend using this new P2V and B2V functionality as a cheap and easy DR type solution. Basically, you'd run the job, convert to virtual job on some sort of recurring basis, say weekly or bi-weekly, and should your physical server ever fail, you can literally press play on your virtual host and launch your physical machine in its new virtual format while you're repairing or ordering new parts for your broken physical server. So now that we reviewed how Backup Exec 2012 enables protection of virtual environments, let's dive into how to manage storage and really handle data growth. Now, this was available in Backup Exec 2010. However, I wanted to touch on the deduplication technology in Backup Exec 2012 because it's even more important to remember to offer the deduplication option when selling Backup Exec, as there are several new enhancements. So let's first review the different deduplication backup methods you can utilize with Backup Exec. Now, whether you're deduplicating backups from physical servers, virtual servers, or whether you're doing client-side deduplication, server-side deduplication, or appliance deduplication, all of this is now supported in Backup Exec 2012. So with that said, let's talk more about its new support for virtual machines. So as I mentioned earlier, Backup Exec 2012 now includes some new intelligence, which are known as stream handlers. These effectively allow deduplication of backups from either VMware vSphere or Hyper-V machines. Now, these new stream handlers effectively allow Backup Exec to understand the contents of VMDK files and VHD files as they are processed for backup. So now it truly looks inside of these virtual disk files and figures out where actual files start and stop, and then aligns these deduplication blocks along those actual files. So adding to the new stream handler technology, another feature of Backup Exec is optimized duplication. Or in other words, it's essentially the copying of deduplicated backup data from one backup server to another. This allows you to have your backup data both at site A and at site B. So this is truly our answer when looking for off-site disaster recovery solutions. Now, this was somewhat available with Backup Exec 2010. However, with 2012, this functionality was enhanced so that when you send granular or GRT backup sets from one server to another, there's no rehydration step in between. So, how do we explain something like this to a customer, really in plain English? All we would need to say is that if you buy Backup Exec 2012 with the deduplication option for both Site A and Site B, the backup data will remain in its deduplicated form at Server A and then travel in its deduplicated form over to Server B, which truly enables us to have our offsite replication jobs finishing much, much faster. Linux, as well, has gotten some attention in this Backup Exec 2012 release. Up until now, Backup Exec has supported server-side deduplication of Linux backups, which means the data is copied from the Linux machine to the server running Backup Exec, and then is deduplicated on the media server. However, Backup Exec 2012 now supports client-side deduplication for Linux servers. That means that before the data leaves the Linux server, it is deduplicated, and only the unique box will actually go over the wire to the Backup Exec server. So this means we really have more flexibility with Linux servers, and if we use client-side deduplication, we will see the benefit of less data traffic and faster backup times. All right, so we've touched on virtualization and talked about storage management. So let's dive into how Backup Exec 2012 helps solve our disaster recovery problems. So Backup Exec 2012 now uses the Symantec recovery disk, which you might recognize from the Symantec system recovery products. Now, this allows administrators really to easily restore backups of servers from bare metal. So, for example, you have been backing up a server, and that server has some kind of critical storage failure. Say the main RAID array crashes, and your server is now completely dead. So now you'd simply rebuild the RAID array, right, and use the semantic recovery disk to do a full recovery and restore the server exactly as it was before the crash. Now, to activate this bare metal recovery feature, the server must be backed up using the full system protection feature in Backup Exec. Now, the good news is that it's already enabled by default, so you won't need to make any changes to your default backup jobs to enable this functionality. And to complement this bare metal recovery feature, it also now supports a dissimilar hardware restore. So, for example, let's say you have that server that you've been backing up and it has some kind of critical problem again. Let's say the RAID array fails again and you've had enough with your current server, so you decide to buy a brand new server. Now with Backup Exec 2012, if the original server was from manufacturer A, you can now restore it to a server that's from manufacturer B using the recovery disk, which automatically adds and configures all of the core drivers that you need for really a proper boot sequence. Now a common question I'm sure you're asked when you talk about bare metal and dissimilar hardware restores is the driver issue, right? So how does Backup Exec 2012 know where to get all of your drivers? Well, the recovery disk includes a giant library of drivers that are used for bare metal and dissimilar hardware restores. But what if you have very, very old hardware or very, very new hardware, right? You may have issues locating your specific drivers. But really there's no need to worry because you can now create your own version of the recovery disk, which will add all of your custom drivers right from the Backup Exec user interface. So let's take this a step farther. As you can see here, we have multiple servers backing up to the Backup Exec server, right? Now, what a very cool feature is in 2012 is that it allows you to run a quick scan that will gather the driver information and driver files from all of your remote servers. And once everything is gathered, it takes all of these files and adds them to your very own customized version of the semantic recovery disk. All right, so we talked about all these cool new enhancements to virtualization, storage management, and disaster recovery. Now let's talk about its cool new user interface. So I have some screenshots here of Backup Exec 2010 and Backup Exec 2012. And as you can see, they obviously went back to the drawing board and completely redesigned Backup Exec for the better. Now, all the abilities of Backup Exec are still there. And as you can see, there are a lot of checkboxes, settings, destinations, for just about every job in 2010. But note that they didn't really remove anything. They just helped automate this process and made it much easier for us to use, configure, and access in the new user interface. Now, also in the past, Backup Exec really focused on managing your backup jobs, right? You make several backup jobs to protect your servers, and you monitor those jobs to make sure they ran successfully. And as soon as you know, this process becomes extremely difficult as you add more and more backup jobs into Backup Exec. So Symantec really decided to rethink how to run backups and monitor actual server protection. Basically, they thought, okay, instead of monitoring backup jobs, let's help everyone monitor the actual protection status of their servers. If we take a look at the new interface here on the right, they added this new ribbon bar at the top, 4 items to choose from. So this makes it very easy for us to add storage, run backups, and run restores in just a couple clicks. So let's take a look at how easy it is to run a backup. So first you choose your server to back up, right? Next you'll get this pop-up screen. Now on the left, it will automatically show you what is running on the server and pre-select what is most important to back up. And to the right here, it will automatically create a backup schedule and target destination. But notice there are a couple edit buttons. So if you want to change the default selection, simply click the edit button on either side. There's also a button here to easily replicate your backups. Say you back up to disk first, and then you want to replicate your backup data to an off-site disk location, and then send it to tape. And then maybe finally, you want to convert this backup into a virtual machine. All you're simply doing is clicking this Add Stage button to add another backup destination where you want to send your backup data. So it's really just that simple to set up your replication jobs. So let's go over the key points to remember when talking about Backup Exec 2012 from a technical sales standpoint. There is the new simplified user experience. There is the new staging approach to backups. There is the ability to back up to virtual and convert to virtual. They integrated bare metal and Dissimilar hardware restores. And last, they now support deduplication everywhere. All right, so where do you go if you have any questions or if you need some pre-sales assistance? BackupExec.com is the primary place to go for everything about Backup Exec. They have videos, white papers, information, flash tours, and access to download the trialware. There's also a Symantec Connect community. This is a site where people go to post their ideas and thoughts and share solutions about a product that they're using. So Symantec Connect is really a place to go to meet other people that use products, including Backup Exec, to ask others for help or really help others. Another key place for support is at support.symantec.com. This is always my first stop when I need an installation or admin guide, or even when I run into any issues or error codes with a Symantec product. I can do a quick search through their support database to find a solution. And the last thing I'd like to mention is that the Tech Data Solutions Center now has a YouTube channel. Here you can find demos, recent webinar recordings such as this one, and even Tech Data event videos. So again, I'd like to thank you all for listening today, and I wish you all the best in selling the new Backup Exec 2012.